Hi, I'm Tim Seeley. I'm a writer and artist of comics in Chicago, and I'm going to draw you a Nightwing today. So, when you're drawing a figure, the key is to have at least a rough idea in your head of what you're going to do, but in reality, there's not a lot you can say for sure that you're going to be able to translate, so there's a lot of figuring out on paper, which is why I use these blue pencils, which are lighter and softer, and I can tell the difference between this and my final darker line. So in a case where I'm not drawing from a script, where I don't have a specified direction, honestly I'm kind of winging it, have a rough concept in my head. Obviously I write this character and I've drawn him a lot of times, so I have a pretty good idea of how he moves and what he does. So that makes it a little bit easier. I mean, I'm always trying to remember details and stuff of a character, and obviously there's a certain amount of muscle memory. You have to draw and draw and draw these things 1,000 times, and the proportions sort of etch themselves into your brain, hopefully. I know I have to take life drawing classes, like every few months I need to go back and take a bunch of figure drawing classes, because otherwise these things, it's not intuitive, it goes right out your head. And it gets replaced by stuff like, you know, your grocery list. The details just get fogged over by normal stupid life stuff. People think there's a really simple answer to, like, how do I get into this? And they just want you to say, you know, you're ready to go to it, kid. And it's like, no, it's going to take 20 years of hard work and suffering and occasionally having to work a day job and being late on your rent and all the kind of things that no one wants to hear. There's no magic in actually being a comic book artist. This is where you have to be careful, because you start smearing lines around because the ink is kind of wet. You gotta be really careful. You don't have to make things exact. This is not photography, right? It doesn't have to be right, it has to feel right. That's the rule. You know, when I first started doing this, I worked with inkers, but I would lose money if I'd let someone else ink me. The page rate wasn't quite as good. So I learned to ink so I could not have to split the money with someone else, and so then I could buy groceries. So for me, you know, it wasn't an artistic choice, it was a I'd like to be able to pay my bills kind of choice. And then this is the part where I lament that all the characters I've made, that they all have dark hair, because I waste so much ink a year because I have to fill in the dark hair. I definitely have done plenty of sketches where I said, oh God, what have I done? But they pay me to draw, not to erase. That's a great Jack Kirby quote. I like to use it in my everyday life. So this stage is all about basically giving the drawing volume. The inks are really good for sort of setting, you know, the reflection of light and the amount of light. Thick lines can help me indicate, you know, that the light is coming from a different direction. Basically, the inking stage is really about adding realistic volume and rendering. All right, and then I'm gonna start rendering that muscle stuff now. So in this stage, I'm thinking about reflection of light on what would basically be a body, because we don't have to make this fit like spandex really would. The way spandex really fits is not very flattering or terribly sexy, generally speaking. My speed actually comes from the fact that I worked at an indie publisher when I first started in comics. And whereas, you know, at Marvel and DC, you could get away with doing a page a day, maybe a page every day and a half. To keep up and to reach our budget, I had to be able to draw a page and a half to 2 pages every day. And, you know, I learned a lot about the old school comic artists like Kirby, and John Buscema and Gil Kane. You know, these guys were doing the rate I was doing, and they were doing it so amazingly. But I was like 23 and had no idea what I was doing, so. None of my pages from that era are quite at Kirby or John Buscema level. My hand's not steady enough to use a real brush, which a lot of comic book artists do use. But I can use a brush pen. That adds that little bit of extra stability that I can pull off using it. Plus, I hate doing this. I hate it. And then I'm going to go to my Pen Tech pens, my microns. And then usually I kind of like to fill out a drawing with a little bit more, some thinner rendering lines that are a little thicker. This would be also like if a character had a gun or something that's more angular and doesn't look as good with a brush. This is where I break out the Tech pen so that I could do that. And then we add the most important part, signature. My name is Tim Seeley and this is my Nightwing.